Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Christ and Community Connection. So, yes, it is me, the one and only Sean Johnson, here to bring you just a quick word for this week. So, for this week, let's talk about surrender and submission. So, I think one of the things that I think about is that this word submission or submitting often gets a bad rap. I think that there's this feeling of when you submit that you are weak, that you are less, that you are, you're giving up, but you're giving up in a way where, you feel like you're just not allowing yourself to actually still be in a good spot. But what I really want us to understand is more than that. Too often, the word submit and thinking about surrendering comes up throughout the Bible where, it talks about wives submit to your husbands, or it talks about submitting to authority, submitting to different leadership. In reality, one of the biggest verses that we can talk about when it comes to submission is James 4:7. So let's go ahead and take a look at that verse. Submit, and it reads as, resist the devil and he will flee from you. So now that we can see here in James 4:7, it truly says, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil and he will flee. Too often we look at part B of that verse where it says resist the devil and he will flee, thinking that we don't have to do anything else. And so as we can see here, submitting is submitting yourself to God, like surrendering to him, and ultimately being able to receive the blessings that are going to come to your life. Submitting means not just this physical submit or surrender, on the outside where you are just speaking it. You truly have to live it out each and every day. And one of those ways is that truly, through humbling yourself in prayer. So prayer is such a huge thing in the life of a Christian, and it should be a daily occurrence. And so you should be praying in the good times and praying in the bad times, and even understanding that prayer can, change the course of history. Prayer can, truly move mountains, and that prayer is something that is so important that even it's referred in the New Testament so often in the Gospels of when Jesus did it in the garden. But also I think one of the times where we forget that it was done, or we often overlook, is when Christ did this on his way to the cross even. And so, and even before that, of understanding that he knew what was coming, yet still thought that I need to pray on this journey towards the cross. And so in Matthew 26:39, it talks about how Christ fell on his knees. And so specifically, as you can look at the verse here, and it says, going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will. So yes, we can see here that even here that Christ saw the importance of being able to really look to his Father in heaven and just cry out and just surrender, and truly understanding the importance of that surrender and that submission to the will of his Father in heaven. And so if the Son of the living God is able to do that, the one who died for our sins, why are we not able to do it as quickly either? So speaking as quickly, I was watching this show the other day. It's some show Shaquille O'Neal has out there on television, and he was talking about how he's trains and has been doing this for years, training with mixed martial arts or MMA fighters. And there was in this episode I was watching, he happened to be talking about, submission holds. And so there were these two very experienced fighters that, fight out of one of the top companies within mixed martial arts. And one of them ended up putting a submission hold on the other to kind of show Shaq what this looks like, the feeling, kind of the look, the art of this, and trying to help him understand the seriousness of this. And so when these two experienced fighters, when one put the submission hold on the other, it took a while for that experienced fighter, to actually what we call tap out, to submit to the other fighter. Now, a couple seconds later, one of the fighters, experienced fighters, puts that same submission hold on Shaquille O'Neal, and within 5 seconds, Shaq taps out. And I found that very interesting, because when you look at how big and how strong and how dominant a basketball player Shaquille O'Neal was, and how big and dominant, of an individual, and how strong of an individual he still is now, you can see and realize that he probably may have not needed to, or let's say shouldn't have, tapped out that quickly based on looks. But in reality, that's where we have to understand that submitting and surrendering is not about what you see on the outside. It's about how you are on the inside, and how much, not that you're willing to endure, is understanding that you don't need to endure for that long. When it comes to Christ, and following him, we should want to do that, much more readily. We should want to make our Father in heaven the Lord over our lives, and understanding that his will should be our will, his heart's desire should be our heart's desire. Even recently I was, praying, God, give me, the ability to be able to see this world through your eyes, and see the way that I myself can use the gifts and talents you've given me to love others. And I think in that is, by even saying that, I truly believe that is me wanting to surrender to him and make him the Lord over my life in so many ways. And I think that's where we have to understand that with God, yes, all things are possible. It's easy to say that verse over and over again, through, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. With God, all things are possible. But yet we fail to realize is that comes, and the ability to believe so strongly in those verses, when we truly submit and surrender to the will of the Most High God. And so we have to understand that we can't just pilly-pally around and be lukewarm. We either need to be hot for him, or we need to be cold and just stay away. But at the end of the day, I think it's best that we truly decide that we need to be on fire for the one true living God. And so I just want to wrap up this with a couple other verses for us to think about. And one of them comes out of Job 22 and 21, and it really provided a good perspective using the word submit and what that means. And so really, if we take a look at this here, you can see how powerful this verse is, and that as it reads to us, we'll be able to truly look at the importance of God in our lives, if we are willing to take the time to truly just step back and be a background star, and let him be in the foreground, let him be the main attraction in our lives. So go ahead and let's take a look at Job 22:21, which reads as, "Submit to God and be at peace with him. In this way, prosperity will come to you. Accept instruction from his mouth." And again, you can see here it says, that submit to God and be at peace with him. I think that's so huge. Like, that be at peace with him is understanding that even in the midst of the storm, the midst of the trials that you might be going through right now, regardless of where you are living, even beyond this season of COVID-19, there are things you probably were struggling with beforehand. There's things you're going to struggle with afterwards. But understanding that when you submit to God, you can be at peace with Him. But yet, even when you're in that peace, remembering to accept instruction from Him. Right smack dab in the middle of the Bible in Psalm 118, it talks about that it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. And so, why not submit when you know that you can get such great instruction? You can have so much faith and confidence in the great I am, the creator of who you are, the one who breathed life into your lungs. And so, take that and truly believe what can truly happen in your life by just submitting and surrender. And so I just want to close out with this verse here that's coming out of 1 Peter 5. And really is one of my favorite passages in the Bible. And it's such a serene, verse that I truly, as you see, I'm closing my eyes as I truly even think about this verse. It just puts me, in a spot. And I think this is what I ultimately want us to understand when it comes to submitting and surrendering. And it says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that He may lift you up in due time." So yes, ultimately remember that humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that He may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. So again, family, friends, fellow believers, and even non-believers, if you're watching this, know that there's a God out there that is, as we used to say, He's got the whole world in His hands. And no, I'm not going to sit here and sing, like we used to in the olden days. But really what I want us to understand is yes, He's got us in His hands. But it's not that He's got each of us in His hands. It's truly that He hears each of us one by one. When you say, His name, when you call on His name, when you truly humble yourselves and exalt His name, He hears you, and He's ready to hear you right now. So please take the time, submit and surrender to the one true living God who breathed life into you. Peace and blessings.